Hello and welcome to today's episode of ESL for You, the podcast where we talk about interesting topics in English. I'm your host, Fabi, and today we're going to talk about relationships during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, as you already know, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected many aspects of our lives, including our relationships with our partners, family, friends, and colleagues. Some people have been separated from their loved ones due to travel restrictions or quarantine rules. Some people have been stuck at home with their partners or family members for months without much privacy or personal space. Some people have been working remotely or online, I think everybody has been working online without much social interaction or support. And some people have been looking for new relationships or dating online without being able to meet in person or go out. And that's a bit crazy. It is kind of, way different from what we are used to. So how is a pandemic for you? How has a pandemic affected your relationships? Have you faced any challenges or difficulties? Have you found any opportunities or benefits? Because there are opportunities and benefits. Let me know in the comments on my YouTube channel, linked in the description of this podcast. Now, let's move on to some vocabulary related to relationships during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll say a word or phrase and you can repeat after me. Ready? Let's rock and roll. So the first phrase I have here is long distance relationship. This means a romantic relationship between two people who live far apart and communicate mainly by phone or online. For example, many couples have been in a long-distance relationship during the pandemic due to travel bans or border closures. And to be honest, I don't like long-distance relationships. I don't think that really works for me because, I'm kind of kinesthetic, so I need to touch something and do something in order to feel that it's real. So long-distance relationships are super difficult to maintain. But the next phrase I have here for you is Zoom date, which is a virtual date where two people chat online using a video conferencing platform such as Zoom. For example, since they couldn't meet in person, they decided to have a Zoom date and watch a movie together. So yeah, you can definitely go for a Zoom date if you're in a long-distance relationship. But again, that's not the thing for me. That's not my thing. But is it your thing? Let me know in the comment section in my YouTube channel, which is again linked in the description of this podcast. All right, next phrase is quarantine bubble. This is a small group of people who agree to limit their social contacts to each other during the pandemic. For example, they formed a quarantine bubble with their close friends and neighbors to reduce the risk of infection and loneliness. So I did have a quarantine bubble of my own. I would only hang out with my boyfriend and some of my nephews and nieces, and sometimes I wouldn't even open the door, to be honest, because I was really scared at first. So I lived in a quarantine bubble. And next phrase is lockdown fatigue. Fatigue means when you're really, really tired, we can say, oh, I'm fatigued. Yeah, so, it's a state of mental exhaustion. Lockdown fatigue, a state of mental exhaustion caused by the stress and boredom of staying at home for a long time. For example, she was suffering from lockdown fatigue and missed going out and having fun. Yes, so yeah, sometimes I still suffer from lockdown fatigue because, I'm exhausted sometimes because I usually work online, and sometimes I'm bored because I'm at home most of the time. But I try to go out every now and then and work out at least 3 times a week. But yeah, I think most of us suffered from lockdown fatigue. And the next phrase is social distancing. Social distancing is the practice of keeping a safe distance from others and avoiding physical contact to prevent the spread of the virus. For example, they followed a social distancing guidelines and greeted each other with an elbow bump instead of a hug. Yeah, and following the social distancing guidelines was very, very important, but not all of us did it. Especially not me, because I suffered from lockdown fatigue, and I decided to throw a party and we all got infected. I actually had coronavirus 4 times, so it didn't quite work out for me. All right, so did you learn some new phrases? I hope you did. If you want to review them, remember that you can find them in the transcript of this episode on my website, which I will link to the podcast description. Okay, so now let's end this episode, with some jokes about relationships during the COVID-19 pandemic. All right, so here we go. What do you call a couple who met online during the pandemic? A coronamance. How do you know if your partner is cheating on you during the pandemic? You find another mask in their pocket. What do you call a breakup during the pandemic? A COVID divorce. How do you spice up your relationship during the pandemic? You wear different masks every day. And what do you say to your partner when you want to cuddle during the pandemic? Let's get corona cozy. All right, so remember, if you have any other jokes about relationships during the COVID-19 pandemic, feel free to share them with me on my website or on my YouTube channel in the comment section. That's all for today's episode, and thank you so much for listening. This was ESL for you. Stay safe and healthy. See you next time. Bye-bye. Keep practicing your English. Don't forget that.